bet Dr. Faust could do this with one hand tied behind his back. All right, Chris. Trying to get that thing on my belt without being able to look at it is a dexterity test. Okay. We're loud and clear. Let's see. You going to be on say, Donna? Thank you.
Okay, turn to page 34 in the Gold Prayer Book. And we'll start with the Shakyamuni Buddha mantra 3 times. Taya ta mune mune maha munaye soha. Taya ta mune mune maha munaye soha. Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Munaye Soha. And now the Medicine Buddha stanza and mantra. Bhagawan with equal compassion for all, whose name when merely heard dispels the suffering of the lower realms, dispeller of disease and the 3 poisons, I prostrate to Medicine Buddha Lapis Light. And we'll chant the mantra 7 times. Teata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha. Teata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha. Teata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha. Teata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha. Teata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha. Teata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha. Teata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha. And now the 4 measurables in English 3 times with feeling. Now think about what we're saying. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And now if you'll turn to the bottom of page 37, we'll chant the Chenrezig's mantra 8 times and Green Tara's mantra 7 times. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om tu tari tu re so ha. Om 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 tari tu re so ha. Okay, the children can go to their classes now.
Jill, you want to do announcements now? Yeah, I like doing, when Geshe-la's not here, doing them before, so they're not tacked on at the end when people are rushing for this, storming the doors to get out into the beautiful weather. Yeah. So we'll start with Jill, our center manager.
Begging. So let's see. So we're working on the Count Me In campaign, and we've had somebody step up, Kristen, for the kitchen manager. I don't think she's here today. And she needs a little help. We need another one of those. So if somebody could come in on Fridays and just help clean up the kitchen, look in the fridge and say, that's been there for about a year, throw that out, which is the case. And then just tidy up, put dishes away and things like that. So it's real simple. And it's fun on Fridays. Gary's in here, and Julia's in here watering flowers, so it's kind of fun. Then the thing that's the big shed removal, et cetera, is happening. We've picked a date, so now we can actually say, we know when we're doing it, and here's what we need. So May 12th, we're going to take everything out of the old shed and clean it off, because there is a mildew problem, so I want people to know if they have allergies. We'll be protected. Dorothy, who just left, Dorothy, who just arrived, will help us with a protocol about that. So, so we will just be removing, Julie, there she is. Stand up, Julie. She's our shed captain. That was a big deal finding Julie. So everything will come out, be cleaned, and then not go back in, because we have to get rid of the old one and then get a new one and put it back in. So it'll be stages, but like starting at 10 and going on till we get everything out and clean, May 12th. And so if you can just, you can even tell me afterwards, or you can email me at centermanager@kadampacenter-org, kadampa-center.org, and let me know, and then we can plan for that. It'd be great. Thanks. Dorothy.
Hi, everybody. I'm part of the family program, and this year I'm part of the summer program, and we have an event coming up May 25th through the 27th, Memorial Day weekend. Mark your calendars, because we're going camping, and we're going to have some fun, and we want all the kids and the families to come and join us that weekend. So we have it all set up to register online. And there should have been an email sent out, and there's under events, under the Kadampa website is where you will find the information on that. And we are also just getting our summer program, and we have called it Operation 16G, just so you know. So if you got any kids that are coming here for the summer, we have a fun program set up for that. So I just wanted to make sure you all mark your calendars for Memorial Weekend.
Can you go if you don't have kids?
Sure. That's fine. We are not saying that it has to be people with kids only. We want you all to come and have fun. So, and we're doing it BD Wells up at Falls Lake Recreation Area. So, and it's not next to the lake, so we're not going to be flooded like Jordan Lake is every year. Every time we try to go there with Boy Scouts. So, it should be fun. And the weekend before, we're also doing outside. We're going to have a camping 101, and the Walker family is going to walk us through how to go camping, in case you don't know. So if you're interested but don't know what to do, the week before we'll tell you what to do, okay? So if you have any questions, just come see me later. All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dorothy.
And I have a couple of spiritual program notes. If we keep this going, Robbie will only have to work for about 2 minutes.
That's the idea.
That's
yeah.
his secret agenda for having announcements first.
no time for the
Just to let you know, Geshe Sangpo will be teaching next Sunday, so you don't want to miss that. And he's going to be teaching not every Sunday, but on a regular basis again. At the end of May, right after Memorial Day weekend, on the 29th, is Sakadawa. That's a holy day, and this is when when the Geshis normally will offer refuge if somebody wants to request it. Taking refuge is making a commitment to Buddhism as your spiritual path. It also creates a pretty strong karmic bond with the person with whom you take refuge. Geshe Gelik is not going to be here on Sakadawa, but Geshe Sangpo will be offering refuge if anybody requests it. I'm going to send an email announcement out, and we'll have registration up at that time. So you'll need to register if you want to take refuge. And we have a pate coming next Saturday at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock out by the stupa. There'll be music, talent show, food, all the fun things. So come and just have fun with your Dharma family. That's it.
Okay, thank
you're
you.
on, Robbie.
Any other announcements? Stretch it out, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Robbie Watkins. I'm a member of Kadampa Center. I'm one of the teachers of the Discovering Buddhism series on Monday evenings, and sometimes I sit up here to lead the discussion in the absence of Geshe Gelik or Geshe Sampo. So let me find out who's here. Who's here for the very first time this morning? If you can raise your hands. Okay, great. Glad to have y'all here. Let's see if everybody can just take a moment and introduce yourselves to the people around you, both to the people you know and the people you don't know. That'd be a good way to start off. Good morning. Okay, great. Glad to have you here. Okay. Okay, if we can come back. Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you, everyone. During Geshe-la's absence, there's no specific topic or course that we're following. It's up to the person who's sitting up here in the hot seat to decide what they want to talk about or lead a discussion on. And this is going to be very much leading a discussion. So I try and take, when I'm up here, I try and go back and touch on some of the basics because we have so many new people who come through Kadampa Center. And it can be a little bit overwhelming if you come in the middle of a course or a middle of a series of teachings and you kind of are swimming, just trying to keep your head above water. So today we're just going to talk at a very basic level about meditation. What it is, what its purpose is in the Tibetan tradition, why we do it, how we do it, if we do it, what prevents us from doing it. And I think there'll be a lot of interesting discussion around this topic. So in light of that, let's start with some meditation. Whether you've ever done it or not, we'll just jump in at the deep end. As always, we begin by setting our posture. Not that the posture is the goal of the meditation or the most important aspect. The point of establishing our posture is so that it becomes stable and non-distracting, kind of self-maintaining, so we don't have to pay attention to it as we sit in meditation. And the posture in and of itself is not holy. It is not a guarantee to enlightenment if we sit correctly. But it has been something that's been tested over the centuries and is found to be beneficial. We can either sit in a chair or on a cushion. The most important part is that our back is just a little bit straighter than we normally sit. Not rigid or tense, but it's like our spine is a little bit stretched out. So if we're in a chair, we shouldn't be slumped back. And if we're sitting on a cushion, we shouldn't be hunched forward, but just a nice straight posture. Our head is straight on our shoulders, not forward, maybe a couple degrees in front of the vertical, but no chin on chest. Not tilted to one side or the other. Our eyes are either just very slightly open so that some light can come in and keep us from falling asleep, or very lightly closed but not clenched shut. Our mouth lightly closed, our jaws are not clenched but relaxed. Our tongue is on the ridge of the gums above our upper teeth. It's considered bad form to drool while you're meditating for some reason, but it said that placing the tongue there is helpful. Our shoulders are down, not up about our ears, but relaxed, and a little bit back, so our chest is a little bit open. Upper arms away from our torso so that some air can pass in there so we're not sweating. And we can either put our hands on our knees, or more traditionally, we have our right hand on our left hand with our thumbs touching slightly below the navel, said to represent the union of wisdom and compassion that is enlightenment. And then everybody always worries about what to do about their legs. If you're sitting in a chair, have your feet flat on the floor. It's fine to place a cushion underneath your feet if the chairs are a little bit high for you. So if you want to grab a cushion now, go ahead and do that. If you're sitting on a cushion on the floor, sit towards the front of the cushion, the front third, so that your pelvis opens up. Your knees are down, and your legs can either be crossed or one in front of the other, or half lotus or a full lotus. Any of those positions is fine as long as you find it stable and non-distracting. So check your posture, and if there are any sources of tension, identify them right now and address them now so they don't become a distraction during the meditation process. And we begin by taking 3 deep breaths from the abdomen, with the stomach expanding on the in-breath, so our diaphragm is pulled down, and then contracts towards our spine on the out-breath. So 3 deep breaths that way. And now we allow our breathing to return to its normal pattern. And we always begin our meditation session by setting our motivation. And we did that when we read the prayers earlier, but there's been a lot of chatter since then, so let's set our motivation again. And we think to ourselves about why we're doing this meditation. And any motivation is fine. We should be honest with ourselves, certainly. If it's just out of curiosity, if we just want to try something new, that's fine. If it's because we find it a little bit relaxing and it helps calm our mind, that's great. But it's said that the highest motivation, the motivation that gives the most force and power to the meditation that follows, is what's known as the bodhicitta motivation. The thought that everything I do, even something as simple as sitting in meditation for a few minutes, is done so that I can be of greater benefit to all living beings, including myself, but to my family, my friends, people I don't really like, people I don't even know, all animals and all beings throughout other realms. That I am doing this to develop my mind so that I can be of benefit to all those living beings. And that's not a thought that comes naturally to most of us, so we have to kind of force it out sometimes, generate it effortfully, with effort, so that ultimately it becomes effortless, spontaneously and continually present in our mental continuum. Most of us aren't there yet. Let's just take a minute and see if we can generate the bodhicitta motivation. And having set our motivation, we can now begin the actual meditation. We're going to do a very simple concentration or stabilizing meditation. One of the two main types of meditation in the Tibetan tradition, where we place our awareness on a chosen object, and every time we notice that we've left that object, we come back to it over and over and over again. So we're just going to work with the breath in this meditation. It's always with us. A very simple object. Place our awareness, our concentration on the physical sensation of the breath moving in and out through the opening of our nostrils. Direct perception. We're not standing back and looking at it. We're not visualizing it. We're not describing it to ourselves or elaborating on its qualities. Just consciousness directly on the tactile sensation of air moving in and out through our nostrils. So ultimately it's a non-dualistic experience. The mind, the awareness, and the movement of the breath are of the same nature. And of course, we'll notice right away that our mind is on something else. We don't get angry with ourselves or irritated or frustrated. We know that's natural. That's a habit we've developed over years and decades and countless previous lives, if we accept that, of always paying attention to the newest, brightest, shiny object. So we're retraining our mind. We set that shiny object away and come back to the dull, ordinary breath. We come back over and over again. And that is the process of stabilizing the mind, coming back to the chosen object over and over again. So we'll do that for about 10 minutes. For experienced meditators, that doesn't seem very long. If we're new, that may seem like an eternity. That's okay. Just back to the breath over and over again. And just as we always begin our meditation with a motivation, we always end with a dedication. That's commonly done by reciting some dedication prayers, but in this instance, we can just think to ourselves, give ourselves a mental pat on the back, acknowledge we've done something a little bit out of the ordinary, that our mind in some small, subtle way is different than it was before we began the meditation. And may that positive imprint we've placed on our mind stream, may it not be lost, but may it ripen in the future in a way that will benefit all living beings. You can stretch and wiggle around. It's a very quiet group. We must have a bunch of serious meditators in here. For those of us who came in late, we're going to be talking about meditation this morning. Stick that knife in, twist it once. Yeah, okay. And it's going to be a discussion. And if you want to make a comment, please wait till you get one of the mics, because this is being streamed around the world in real time. And there are people out there who want to hear all of it. If there is no discussion, we'll be out of here quite early. Let's see, let me do another survey. How many people here have a daily meditation practice? Okay, no need to raise your hand if you don't. Let's see your hands again. Okay, good number. And how many of the people who have a daily meditation practice meditate every single day? Some, okay. How many people meditate now and then? Okay. And then how many people are completely new to meditation? Okay, great. Good group. This subject is taught in a lot more detail in some of our evening classes, but I know a lot of people who come on Sunday mornings don't come to those. We have a whole 6-week module in Discovering Buddhism on how to meditate, which will be offered again. Do you know when? No. It'll be a while, quite a while. Yeah, so that's not coming up anytime soon. And then our other courses we have.
Meditation 101, I think is the next introductory class that starts in June.
Okay, Meditation 101, which is an evening class will go into more detail than what we talk about this morning. So if you want to learn more about meditation, that would be a great class to come to. And that's how many weeks? 5 weeks starting in June.
First Tuesday in June.
Starting the first Tuesday in June. Okay, so we're going to talk about meditation. So the first thing we have to do is define what we're talking about. Buddhism is, particularly in the Tibetan tradition, is very keen on list, as most of you know, 3 of this and 7 of that. We're not going to get into any of those today, I don't think. But it's also very keen on defining terms specifically so that we're using a common language. Because a lot of these words that we use when we're in here don't have exactly the same meaning that we think they do, because of course we're dealing with translations of translations, and there's a lot of argument about what the correct English words to use are, and it's still a work in progress. So what is meditation? I'm going to throw that out. Anybody want to give me a definition? I'm going to sit up here and try and present the official Buddhist point of view, but there's no need to stick to that. And lots of times I'll just say ATB, according to the Buddha. But all opinions are equally valuable around here. There's no right answer or wrong answer to any of these questions. So anybody want to take a stab at what is meditation?
A calm, clear mind.
A calm, clear mind. Okay, that's good. Okay, we got now the hands are coming up. Yeah, thank you for breaking the ice. Yes.
Just a guess, a process to know your true self.
Process to know your true self. That's good. I like it. Keep going. Andre?
I was hesitant because there's so many. I was hesitant because there's so much, to that. But I think meditation is is a way of calming the mind, stilling the mind, getting to know the mind, right, and then actually beginning to develop and cultivate the mind.
Okay. Great.
So sorry.
What I understand of the purpose of meditation in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition is to have single-pointed concentration, so the ability to focus on an object without break, I suppose. And
Yeah.
the purpose of that is also to be able to penetrate into deep insight, like on emptiness, and to be able to actually take in the information, I suppose, or fully process it.
Okay. And Susie, thank you.
Becoming familiar.
Okay, now we get the party line. Yeah, Susie's been in these
Waiting
classes
for
before. Everything is appropriate. Every answer was appropriate and was part of the answer. The ATB, the Tibetan party line, is that meditation is becoming familiar with something. Okay. And let me just emphasize, meditation is not unique to Buddhism, okay? As we all know, it's in many, many religious traditions, including Christianity and other Eastern religions. But most people, when they hear the word meditation, they identify it with Buddhism. We're kind of a specialist in it. And the general definition of meditation is becoming familiar with something, okay? Now can you meditate on murder? Yeah, I mean, you could sit and have single-pointed concentration on how you're going to murder your worst enemy at work. Okay, that would be meditation. It would not be Buddhist meditation, okay? And it would probably not make you a happier person if that's what you thought about all day long. But that would be becoming familiar with something, okay? The Tibetan word for meditation is Gom, G-O-M. And so this room, our meditation hall, is referred to a gompa, a room for meditation. So this is a place for us to come and meditate, to become familiar with, and then the Tibetan Buddhist addition to that is to become familiar with beneficial states of mind. Okay? Again, this gets into a lot of things, impermanence and emptiness that Peter mentioned, but the Buddhist ATB, according to the Buddha, again, if we think something, our mind becomes that. Our mind is what it thinks. So if we think about beneficial qualities of our mind becomes those qualities. Okay? So, to become familiar with beneficial qualities of mind, developing beneficial states of mind, and I'm going to read a little more detailed definition. This is from Alex Berzin, who's one of the really distinguished Western Buddhist scholars, Berzin. He's been here to Kadampa Center several times. His sister, who's now deceased, used to live in Greensboro, so he'd come down to this area and come teach here. And he served as translator for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. But he has a website. Look up Alex Berzin Archives if you ever want to get the straight party line on stuff. He's very good at this. And he also has a habit of always changing the English word. He changes, if it's traditionally been this, he says, no, this is a better word, but that's irrelevant. His definition of meditation is the repeated practice of generating and focusing on a beneficial state of mind in order to build it up as a habit. I think that's really good. There's a lot of things in there we can talk about. The repeated practice of generating and focusing. Okay, that's the single-pointed concentration that Peter mentioned, on a beneficial state of mind in order to build it up as a habit. This reminds me of something Venerable Robina says. She says, Buddhism is, all it is about developing new habits of mind, getting rid of the ones that don't work and developing habits that are more effective, that work better for us. The repeated practice of generating and focusing on a beneficial state of mind in order to build it up as a habit. So a couple questions. What's a beneficial state of mind? What would that include? What would it include? How would you define what qualifies as a beneficial state of mind? Chris? One that leads to happiness? Yeah, okay, right. A beneficial state of mind is one that leads to happiness. Happiness for whom? Yourself. Okay? Okay. That's how we can tell if a state of mind is beneficial. It makes us happy. Okay? Hopefully, we'll share that with others. But that's the acid test. If I think in this way, it makes me happy. So if we sit on and meditate on murder nonstop, it's probably not going to make us happy. It's not a beneficial state of mind. Okay, so that's the party line definition of a beneficial state of mind. One that makes the person having that state of mind happy. Okay? And with the implication that that ultimately will be shared with others. But there's no guarantee that our happiness is going to make someone else happy. We have no control over them. They have their own karma. They're on their own spiritual path. But at least we can avoid harming them if we're happy. So what are some beneficial states of mind that we might choose to meditate on? Love. Equanimity. Generosity. Non-attachment. Compassion. Okay. Patience. Okay. Those are the main ones. There are if you think of the 6 perfections, if you're familiar with that, those are the main, the 6 big beneficial states of mind. There's ethical behavior, ethical mind, not wanting to harm others, joyful effort, taking joy in doing good works, generosity, okay, which means freely giving, patience. What's patience? Something we need, yeah. The Buddha's definition, it's not getting angry, okay? Not getting angry. Then there's concentration, is a beneficial state of mind in and of itself. And then there's wisdom, which includes non-attachment, but means seeing things as they are, okay? And then we also always include compassion. What's compassion in the Buddhist dictionary?
Not wanting others to suffer.
Yeah, wanting others to be free of suffering. And love is?
Wanting others to be happy.
Wanting others to be happy. So there's a difference between the two. Compassion is wanting others not to suffer. Love is wanting others to be happy. All these words have specific definitions. So these are beneficial states of mind that we generate, okay? Like bodhicitta, when we set our motivation, we may have to grit our teeth and kind of force it out, but we all have at least a little residue of it somewhere in our mind stream that we can tap on. So we generate, according to Alex, we generate it and we focus on it. That means we concentrate on it. We have ultimately single-pointed concentration, but in the same way that we placed our mind on just the physical sensation of the breath, we place it on love. We focus on love, and that's our meditation. That's our chosen object. We focus on compassion, okay? But we see that's kind of hard to do, so we start with our breath. That's a good way to develop concentration and stabilization. You can't become enlightened just by paying attention to your breath, okay? That's not enough, according to the Buddha, but it is a necessary mental skill that we need to develop. So we generate and focus on beneficial states of mind. He starts off by saying repeated practice, which means we do it over and over. It's not like we do it once and that's all we have to do. Check that off. Okay, I meditated on compassion, now on to the next one. Repeated, hopefully daily, but that's not always the case, in order to build it up as a habit. By habit, he means something that is continuously in our mind stream, always there. We don't have to effortfully generate it. It's just continuously there. It's part of the continuum of our mind, love, compassion. What do we call it when we reach that state? What's the word we use? For the actual process of having something always in our mind stream, regardless of what it is. It's called a realization. Okay, this is a jargony word you'll hear used if you hang out in Buddhist cliques. They'll talk about realizations, which means you have completely achieved the state of compassion. Okay, that is always in your mind without having to pull it up. It's always there. You have realized it. So becoming a Buddha, and that's what he means by habit. Okay, a realization is a habit, a habitual way of thinking. Okay, so there's one other important thing that he implies this. He doesn't come out here and state this, but this whole concept of developing new habits is based on the idea that our mind can change. We're not stuck with the mind that we have. This gets back to the Buddhist concepts of impermanence, that everything is changing, but sometimes we think, I've got this mind. I am an angry person. I am a jealous person, and we think we're stuck with it. And life is just learning how to deal with those qualities that are always going to be there. And the Buddha is saying that's a real misconception. The mind is capable of, is always changing. Those qualities that we think are fixed are just habits that can be set aside, and we can cultivate new habits that make us happy, okay? Beneficial states of mind. Okay, if the mind were fixed, if it couldn't change, all this would be a waste of time. This would just be, it would all be irrelevant. But our mind is infinitely capable of being changed. It has no fixed way of being or thinking. It has no, to get into emptiness, which is another word you've heard people mention already, it has no ultimate nature. Okay, it is really just a potential. And that is what allows us each to become enlightened. Again, if the mind were fixed or unchanging, enlightenment would be impossible. But enlightenment is just developing new habits, primarily habits of wisdom, seeing reality as it is, compassion, seeing the wish that others be free of suffering, developing those habits, and meditation is just a tool to help us develop those habits. It's not the only tool the Buddha gave us, it's one, but meditation in and of itself is not the goal, okay? It's a tool, it's a boat to get us to the other side of the river. But meditation in and of itself is not the ultimate goal. It's a tool that we can use and that the Buddha said would be very helpful, in addition to other things like doing good deeds and doing making offerings and other things. But meditation is, for most of us, is the most practical and readily accessible tool to develop these new habits. So I'm going to throw the field open to comments, questions, discussion about what we've talked about so far. Do we have a second? Yeah, can you stay on this side, Susie? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll work both sides of the room. Thank you.
It's just something you said that reminded me of about being angry and stuff like that. Say, I am angry. Remember when Karuna Caden was here, and at Nash Correctional, where I teach prisoners there, we used his book as one of the textbooks, The Misleading Mind. And in it, he stated that
Andre teaches meditation in the prison system. Yeah, so he's got a lot of experience with this.
Right. So one of the things he said in the book is that we identify so much with these negative states of mind, right? We say I am angry, or I am fearful, or I am jealous, or whatever it is. He said it's better stated to say I have.
Yeah.
Anger instead of I am anger, and we identify it with so much that we really think that's who we are, and then we become fixated on that, and then that's who we become in how we behave. And so the whole idea is really being able to see things differently. So that just brought that to mind when you said that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
There we go. Hey, I know one thing you had said, and maybe if you could repeat this for me, because you were saying like.
I doubt if I can repeat anything.
I think you can. I think you.
I'm just like, a vessel. I may start speaking in tongues here. Yeah.
It was like something of the nature of a good state of mind is defined as one that makes you feel good or feel happy. Could you repeat to me again what it is?
A beneficial state of mind is one that makes the person who has that state of mind happy.
Okay.
Okay, which implies calm. Another way it's defined is one that keeps the mind calm, not agitated. Okay.
Okay, my question was, in terms of, there could be things that, I feel like there could be things that would keep the mind calm that may, in the long term, be negative, like, addictions, things of that nature. Attachments, things that can make the mind feel calm in the short term, but then in the long term could have negative effects. So in terms of that definition, like, could you expand on that definition to where it wouldn't include that?
I mean, it's what do those words mean? I think something like addiction, meditating on the object of addiction can give us short-term pleasure. I don't think it calms the mind. Actually, I think if we're willing to look at the mind, the mind is quite agitated when it's attached. Okay, when it's clinging, desiring something, that's an agitated mind. But I don't think the long-term result is happiness. Okay, maybe short-term pleasure, which is very different. Yeah, but it all depends on how you define the terms. Yeah, but certainly there's short-term pleasures that don't lead to long-term happiness.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Got a hand up here.
I really like what Andre said because it's almost as if you say I am angry, then it's very easy to start just going down that path, and kind of once you grasp onto it and you identify with it, it's I think very easy to just kind of for that snowball to start rolling down the hill.
To become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, exactly.
I am angry, therefore in this situation I'm going to be an angry person.
Yeah, and I'm going to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And so, but it's interesting when you say you have anger, it's almost seeing the transitory nature of it and not grabbing onto it once you see the transitory nature of that energy. And don't grab onto it and identify with it, that it can pass. I just think that's a magical, beautiful thing.
Yeah, being able to step back a distance, say, okay, that's anger, but that's not who I ultimately am. There are other possibilities here. Hard to do, though. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Robbie. My question is around not having a fixed endpoint with your mind, and I heard saying not identifying as I am angry, but I'm feeling angry, or I am in those words. But I also hear calm, I am calm. So would it be more appropriate to say I'm feeling calm versus I am
sure.
calm? So
Yeah.
does the same rules apply to the positive side
Yes.
as it does to the negative side? Could you expand on that?
I mean, yeah, again, it gets back to this idea of emptiness, that our mind, which is what we're dealing with in Buddhism primarily, we're not working that much with our bodies most of the time, but our mind has no fixed qualities and is the potential for anything. So ultimately it gets to the point where, say you're having one compassionate thought after the other and anger never arises. So whether you say I am compassionate or I have compassionate thoughts kind of there's no point to it at that stage. But for most of us, we have angry thoughts and we have compassionate thoughts, but we're not either an angry person or a compassionate person, or a person who's having a lot of different type of thoughts. And the Buddhist goal is to cultivate more of the beneficial ones and discard, which doesn't mean being hard with yourself, but just give up, hard as that is to do, the ones that don't cause happiness. Yeah. Does that get to it? Yeah. Yeah, but compassion is not permanent. Love is not permanent in our mind stream. It's always a process.
Yes, thank you, Robbie, again for the introduction. For me, I've always thought of meditation as focusing just on a mantra or on a fixed point. And so this morning, introducing these 6 other things that we can meditate around: love, compassion. So what is the guidance in terms of, to me, when I start thinking about other things, I would imagine my mind might start wanting to go places.
Yeah.
Is there any particular one that is easier than others from your experience? Is there a good place to start in terms of levels of ease?
A couple points about that. I think everybody's going to be different as to, some people find certain types of meditation just intolerable, and there's no point in forcing it if it's that, and you just kind of naturally go to one or the other based on your karmic predisposition. Okay, but most of us need to develop, the majority of us need to develop some ability to concentrate. So that's why we start with something simple like the breath or a mantra. This leads, in the Tibetan tradition, there are 2 main types of meditation. Okay, one is referred to as concentration, or sometimes it's referred to as stabilizing meditation, where we pick a specific object and we put the mind on it and it stays there and it doesn't wander. Or it can be a thought like compassion, or the thought like, wouldn't it be great if everyone were free of suffering? Once we've understood that, we stabilize the mind on that and it doesn't wander off. And ultimately we get to the point where we've developed what Peter referred to, what's referred to as single-pointed concentration, where the mind can stay on an object without wavering for 3 entire minutes with not another thought coming up, or 9 minutes, or all these things. So stabilizing or concentration meditation is something most of us need to practice. But then in the Tibetan tradition, we also do what's referred to as analytic meditation, which a lot of people think of as being, it seems more like thinking, but it uses the mind's ability to analyze, to remember, to compare, to contrast, to look at our own experience. Like we may take the topic of precious human rebirth, that being reborn as a human being with a functioning mind. Think about all the reasons that that's beneficial. But again, we use our ability to concentrate to stay on that analysis so that we're not wandering off and thinking about what we need to get at the grocery store on the way home from Kadampa Center this morning. We develop the ability to concentrate, and then we analyze. And once we come to a conclusion about the analysis, we concentrate just on that. We stabilize on that. So theoretically, we're going back and forth between the 2 types of meditation as needed. But it's generally assume that most of us have very limited ability to concentrate. So that's why we start with something like the breath, so we can train our mind. And of course, the first thing you notice is how untrained your mind is, how it just wanders nonstop. But with time, or as Alex says, with repeated practice, like lifting weights, we develop the ability to concentrate. And the object, we choose. It's not random. When we set up the meditation, we say it's going to be the breath. And I'm going to concentrate that. Or it can be a mantra, concentrating on mantra. It could be an image of the Buddha. That's what all this, these are all just meditational aids up here. It can be a concept like love or compassion, but we take a chosen object and we focus on it. Okay, and that's how we develop the ability to concentrate. Then we go to our analysis. Then if that's weak, then we come back to our concentration. We go back and forth. And this is particularly where having a qualified teacher comes in very useful, someone who understands your mind, but that's not a luxury a lot of us have, to have one that we can consult on a regular basis. So 2 types of meditation, concentration and analytic. Does that help?
Thank you.
Address some of okay.
Nice, thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes, Susie.
One thing that helps me tremendously is to be kind to myself.
Yeah.
I have a lot. I have problems the way everyone else does, staying on topic, even on a breath.
I don't have that problem.
Oh.
No.
Well, good.
I don't think, yes, I have that problem.
Most of us have that problem. And what was I going to say?
Being kind to
See
yourself.
that?
Yeah.
And I have various mental ways of dealing with that. Maybe I'll see a cloud go by and I'll mentally bat it away and say, oh my, pish tosh, don't worry about that. Come back to your breath. And I try to be funny and kind.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing with if there's an angry thought, I don't think, oh, I may say something that I've learned over the years, which is a good, as a therapist when I was, to identify something is the first step. So if you say, oh, I'm getting angry, and then you can deal with it, rather than after, 2 days later say, oh my gosh, I was so angry.
Yeah. An analogy that's used is it's as if your child has wandered off a path. Okay, and they're just a little bit off the path. Your toddler is a little bit off the path. They're not standing on the edge of the cliff getting ready to fall off, so you don't scream at them and everything. But you just go and get them by the hand, bring them back to the path. That's all it is. Bring your mind
toddles
back.
Everywhere.
Yeah, but it's not the end of the world if your mind has wandered off the object of concentration. You just bring it back. That's all.
Noticing is good.
Let's see. Let's go to
I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, and then over here.
Touching back on analysis that you were talking about, how would analysis differ from like judgment? Like whether that's judgment over an object or between interactions with humans?
That's a good question. Yeah. How? Yeah. Yeah, discern. I mean, sometimes judgment is appropriate. Okay. Yeah. I'm going. Let's see. Let's go to. I'll get back over here. Renee, are you going to address this question? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So pass it to Renee. Yeah. That's it. Mm-hmm.
Maybe your reference isn't about this, but when.
Juggling mics.
Often when we think of judgment, like not in a court of law, but just in our day-to-day lives, when we're judging people, we usually have a little bit of an emotional charge around it, versus when you're analyzing something, it's rational. There's no emotional charge, so that could be one difference.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we've theoretically set our motivation with the bodhicitta motivation, but all judgment is not inappropriate in an analysis. It's just judgment motivated by self-interest primarily. And that's just something you're going to have to work out over time, I think. Yeah, but interesting question. Thank you. Let's go over here to Elise.
One thing about meditation that is helpful to me is something that we learned in the beginning stages, which I'm still in after 15 years.
That's very encouraging for the newcomers, Elise.
Yeah. Hang in there. We have many lifetimes, fortunately. But one important aspect of meditation that I've learned is to be able to be in control of your mind rather than your mind having control of you. Mm-hmm. And it's helping us to calm down or eliminate this monkey mind where your brain goes from one tree to another. And it was helpful for me to learn how the reason that we use the breath is because it's something that's always with us, and it pulls your brain out of the trees and helps you to focus on something that's more physical, and it's always there. And something that one of our teachers said too is one of the initial forms of meditation is to count the breaths. You know, as you start with counting to 10, and if you can count 10 breaths with thinking of nothing else but counting those 10 breaths, it's helping you to take control of how you think. And then they related it to, we most of us have grown up with this idea of if you're really angry, don't do anything until you count to 10 first. Well, why is that helpful? It's because when you count to 10, or if you can focus on this thing outside of your brain for a count of 10, you're bringing your mind to a neutral state. And from that neutral state, it's easier then to redirect it to what you choose rather than letting it jump around.
Yeah. I mean, when Geshe Geluk teaches breathing meditation, he usually has us count our breaths. And just to show how everybody's different, I hate counting my breath. I find it extremely distracting. It takes me away from it. But it's very traditional to teach, and it works for a lot of people. I'm just saying for me personally, it's more a distraction than an aid. And this is where you have to, again, that's using judgment. You know, you have to decide what works for you and what doesn't. The other thing, and you kind of touched on this, that's interesting about meditation, there's no right answer, but it's really about the mind working with the mind. It's very interesting that our mind has this ability to look at itself and actually work with itself. It's just interesting, yeah. Okay, let's see, go over it. We'll alternate.
I know one thing.
Or maybe we can have people from each side talk at the same time, and we'll get through more comments that way. Go ahead.
I know one thing Geshe also talks about is to meditate from a neutral or a positive state of mind rather than a negative state of mind, and then uses like the, I guess is it the 9-round breathing technique is a technique to try to bring you from a a negative to at least a neutral, and then have more beneficial meditation.
That's another reason we use the breath. For most of us, unless we have severe lung disease, our breath is kind of a neutral object. We don't have a lot of projections onto our breath. Yeah, so that's good. Let's see, Lee.
I had a question about, I was thinking about what Royden and Andre were saying about identifying with either the positive, not identifying with the positive or negative states of mind that arise, but I've read where Pema Chodron talks about basic goodness, and so I guess there's a difference between this idea of basic goodness and that our starting place, our natural state would tend to be positive rather than an idea of maybe Buddha nature, which implies more of just an emptiness, or maybe we'd really just start from a completely neutral place. When you talk about a potential, that potential could be infinitely bad or good, which is kind of scary to me. So I'm wondering where this idea of basic goodness comes in, and if that's not our starting place. It's not a natural tendency for positive states of mind rather than this neutral potentiality.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I can answer that. I think that you, as the ultimate cop-out up when you're sitting up here, that's a question for a Geshe. Yeah, it's a good question, and I've thought about, but I don't have any real answer for it. Except, the thing that came to mind is everybody here was reborn as a human, which implies a lot of positive actions in the past, okay, that are not lost. So there is some positive energy we have just from the fact that we were reborn as humans. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Quick comment, analogy, and question. For you, sir, there's a book, How to Meditate, that we use in the Meditation 101 class and also in the Buddhism in a Nutshell class, that you might find specific meditations that can help lead you through. So you're trying to find some new ways to meditate. It's out in the bookstore. It's very good. How to Meditate by Kathleen McDonald.
Thank you. Yeah.
And also, Elise gave a wonderful analogy about being able to work on the mind, and we also use this analogy that was given to me many years ago, is we are like a mechanic working on an automobile that's racing down the freeway. Okay, so that's the mind working with the mind. That's always been one of my favorite analogies. And so to use that. And then, Robbie, I wanted you to kind of answer another thing that helped me many, many years ago, and I know you don't remember saying this to me, but many years ago when I was struggling with my meditation practice, I had the daily practice. Then every once in a while, life gets busy and you fall off, okay? And then you always have that feeling of guilt and regret, and I can't do it, and how to get back to it. And this was something, I've meditated, for decades, and I would always almost hate to go back and sit down at the cushion because it's like whatever made me fall off was problematic and then created these other problems. And finally, you let me off the hook because I asked you about my daily practice, and I'm not doing it. Haven't done it for a couple of weeks now, and I got to get back to it. And you actually told me, you said, that happens all the time to everybody, and to let it go. And then when you actually let go the stress of failing, that when I finally understood that part, now when I, get away from my practice and then I realize that my mind is, going a little nuts and I need to sit down again, it's almost like coming home.
Yeah.
But you helped me to let go of the stress of that.
Yeah, that's something we all do. And we're running out of time, just to touch on a few other things about a daily practice. Daily is good, okay, but we're not perfect, okay? Same time every day is good, just the routine. Doesn't have to be long. 3 or 5 minutes is fine, okay? Doesn't have to be in front of a formal altar or some special room, just a place where you can be quiet and people know not to disturb you. And like Sandy says, you have to accept that there are going to be ups and downs. Don't go in expecting your meditation practice to make you feel good every day. That's an attachment, and that's not being realistic. It's definitely going to be ups and downs and forwards and backwards. But as Alex says, the repeated practice of generating and focusing on a beneficial state of mind in order to build it up as a habit. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. So, Donna, you want to do we'll do our dedication verses?
So you want to turn to page 246 in the Gold Prayer Book, or if you have the white folder, it's on the back of the white sheet of text. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain a notion of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That was a great discussion. When does the next Discovering Buddhism module start? May 7th. Okay, I just wanted to put a plug in for it, and that's Hemet Pandya, who's new to the rotation, and he's going to be talking about the wisdom of emptiness. This is on Monday evening starting May 7th. I know he's doing a lot of preparation for it, so I'd highly recommend it if anybody's interested, and that'll be for 6 weeks, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. May 7th, Monday, 7 o'clock. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is not an announcement, but if anybody can stay for a few minutes and help take down the Tara altar from last night's practice, that'd be great. Thank you. And water bowls, yeah.